Usually, I would, without hesitation, say no to an English mirror, unless it had Donati in it. So I'm glad to say, no, this one doesn't have Donati. Calm down. Anatan's biggest fan is, in fact, no other than Puppy Paw, #1 on the leaderboard right now, going up against China's kid prodigy here. It is, of course, Team Elephant's Louis MT. These are the type of people I make exceptions to the norm for. Like, you know, if I was seeing most players doing a mirror, I'd be like, yawn past, let's go do something better with our time. These two I'm willing to make an exception for because I feel like we just don't get to see them enough. Usually when we're talking about tournaments and brackets, I feel like they end up on the opposite side of the brackets. So it's pretty cool to kind of get a little bit of a scope in on them, especially considering right now there's so many different builds coming up with the English that of all the civs at the moment in a mirror, I'd say this is the one that is still being ironed out. Even though the changes didn't look big, I'd say these were the ones that had the biggest changes. I know a lot of people are going to highlight HRE or Byzantine, but I think in terms of the permutations in a mirror, there isn't too much that's changed there compared to the previous patch. But this king especially has changed a lot, and this is already looking very different. Puppy Paw has been a very big fan of his farm openings. Anyone who's been watching his Byzantine games will be familiar with the first farm drop straight away into a second and third a few minutes into the game. This is similar to that logic, right? Like when you're playing as the Byzantines, you spend 60 wood per farm. He's only spending the cost of 1 normal farm to get 2 down. And the cool thing about doing this in this matchup, in a mirror, small differences make the mile. And one thing that can become a big difference, we've seen it time and time again in tournament play, in a mirror, if you get severely more sheep than your opponent, you can end the game quickly. Now, one interesting detail, I'm a little bit surprised by this. Puppy Paw didn't hang around longer to scout, but it is fine. He scouted enough. He got to the edge of the enemy base and then came back. He didn't dart across the center. It looks like he knew there was no sheep left over there. So this means now that Puppy Paw should end up with about 2/3 of the sheep on the map. So a good choice by Blue. Like, this is a lesson everyone should take. I genuinely am not exaggerating when I say it can just bump your rank up quite a bit once you optimize this, is scout rotations and understanding the details that lead to longer rotations. The obvious ones are when you play Abbasid, Delhi, these type of civs, just go on berries. When you play Japanese, get Tawada, go on berries. With the English, this farm opening allowed him to get away with being away longer and not running out of sheep. So cool read there. Unfortunately, on the tail end, it looks like he locked out on the sheep dosage. Because by my calculations, there were no sheep in that northern corner. 1. Are you kidding me? Okay, he missed one other hit. Wait, so this northern corner spawned 2 sheep total. I'm calling scam. That's insane. I actually can't believe he got so few sheep in that area. And what makes it sadder is, wait, did Lou just find one here and he's going to find another here? So after all that brag about how cool the build is, this happens. You're basically 1 sheep apart. Now, I could turn this into a long conversation about how much of a scam rotations are and how sheep RNG shouldn't be able to decide games. I'm going to save that for a podcast on another day because I feel like I do that at least 3 times a month. It's unfortunate. This does happen. Really, Puppy Paw should have been somewhere between, I'd say, about 60 to 70% of the sheep with his rotation. Ends up being, I think, about a 55-45 split. So, considering the double farm investment so early, not a great position to find yourself in. Abbey of Kings is still more optimal for him, though. It looks like Anatan fan is going to be complete with this about an extra 5 or 6 seconds earlier. Shouldn't matter too much because basically you're going to have to run to the enemy base. But it will allow you to be in a position where you can hold Louis hostage in his own base, sort of. Because if he mirrors your move and tries to head to your base, you'll already be diving in on his villagers a few seconds before him. Wish you could see sheep dots on minimap. I don't know about that. I just think the conceptually, the idea of sheep and how they function isn't great. I almost feel like I want to see more maps that experiment with the idea of additional game and hunt. The reason why we don't have that, by the way, is because of Roost's existence. If they just bothered to change how Roost operated, how their bounty system worked, we'd probably see a lot more deer on certain maps, maybe even some maps that have no sheep, but have lots of deer. And then we can see how that functions as a game mechanic, right? Because I've talked with devs about this before, and they share my sentiment that it can really suck when a game is decided by who gets more sheep. I can tell you another thing that someone's going to have more of. Lou's going to have more villages. Look at what's happened here. Paul has not moved out for stone whatsoever. Now, this is interesting, because I think Louis is doing what I'd call the more standard build right now of Abbey of Memes, which is 2TC. I feel like the majority of games that feature Abbey of Kings actually has this right now. But I know that Paul and Wham between them have been going through more evolutions of the English builds than I think any other players on the ladder. So he's definitely got something spicy in mind here. I imagine we're going to be looking at maybe some stables. In fact, yeah, he's already got it there. So Horsemen plus Knights. This is cool. Because Louis has no defenses, right? I think I'd love to see maybe Paul just tries to add a few Horsemen in here and eventually goes Castle. It's probably going to be worth getting Blacksmith's Undermesh. Blacksmith's Undermesh will allow you to dive the enemy base non-stop. And thank you very much, Ahoy Sailors. You know what? I'd take that bet. $5 on English winning the game. You're gonna get. I can give you a return of nothing. If you give me $5, I'll give you $5 back for that. That's how that works. I'll set up the Gamba station because, yeah, this is an interesting matchup now. Like the Horseman detail, I've seen a few more players doing it. It's really smart. Just imagine how powerful all these raiding civs you face off against, like Sipahi, Ghazi, whatever it would be, if they had healing behind them. Oh wait, some of them do. Think about those games where you see a Delhi player just top off all the Ghazi after raiding. It's insanely powerful. This is something English now have access to. Said it in previous recordings, and I stand my ground, and I stick to my guns on this. People are going to learn very quickly in this patch how OP Feudal Age healing can be. King's going to be able to stand his ground, but you know, the interesting thing now is with the arrival of the Horsemen, things get a little bit more difficult. Louis has to fully wall himself in. The good news is he's picked the English. The English have double arrow TC fire plus the network of castles. So they're pretty good at tanking against these charge-ins. The problem, however, is we can see that that was not the intent coming from Paul. It was a bait. This is what I love about this build. The Abbey of Kings is so powerful because it forces reactions. And what I love is the fact that Paul took that element of reactivity and then see if he could fish for more. And you might say, well, KP, he didn't really get much, right? These horsemen can't do anything. Actually, he did. He forced this commitment into walls from Louis. Louis now built 14 slabs of palisade, which ends up being about 100 resources, roughly. I think it's actually 91 wood. It's just more than that because of the initial cost. So you're looking at, I think, 105 wood into walls. And that's before we equate the idle time of your villagers doing that, right? And now, even though Paul is behind on economy, he's going to be up on age by quite the advantage. Horseman hanging around. A little bit surprised by that, but I guess, that's kind of interesting. He wants to stop the heal. Louis not going to fall for it, though. That's really smart out of the kid. If Louis walks out into the mid-map, he's going to lose that king, right? Because Horseman will hunt him down. Because that's what was happening, is that Paul was trying to just cycle in the Horseman, get them low HP, and then heal the king. And then once Louis walks past this threshold with like 60 health, you jump him and kill him. But Louis, good discipline here, isn't going to take the bait. Meanwhile, King's Pass now on the way at home for Anatan fan. Now, in terms of farm transitions, they are about even Stevens here. But the interesting part is now with the age up, you adding kings into the mat with the knight, all of a sudden Louis is not going to be able to fight. So if the timing's right on this, if Anatan gets in quick enough, sorry, Anatan fan, aka Paul, then he will be able to start diving and killing Eco. So Louis needs to be quick about this. It will most definitely be a white tower. If you do not build white tower, you're going to die. Full stop. Like, there's no debating that. Are you kidding me? How did he get away with that? So King's now going to have some assistance on the way as knights are being queued up. I'm wondering, does Paul just rush into a monastery here? It's very burdenous on your economy because you're now going 2TC and then monastery as well. But you've got map control. It makes sense. So here we go. He is going to be moving out for those relics straight away. And the logic of this is that Louis isn't going to have anything to contest you yet, but this is the cool thing about the white tower builds. By going for the white tower, even when you tech up behind your opponent, you now have ability to scale their knights comparatively. That's actually why you see Paul going for the double stable though. Because by being double stables, you're going to stay ahead of the white tower build. Because remember, this is 2 stables in 1. Live coming in. That's the raid here. We'll find a villager kill. In fact, he's going to go even deeper. Smart play. Remember, the king, he does get buffed up when you age up. So right now, he's ridiculously tanky. Almost 300 HP, 3 ranged armor, and 20 damage per strike. So he's throwing away the horseman to do as much damage as possible. I do think he hung around a bit too long here, though. Paul, to me, this was kind of expensive. You could argue it was worth it, though, if you think about the fact that he idled about 30 villages for 10 seconds-ish. If you then like divide that value, right, it comes down to what, 5 villages idled for a minute kind of feeling. And if you consider a villager gives you about 40 to 50 resources around there, then the king costing 200 resources means that was worth it. So pretty cool detail there. And it's not just the raw cost and idle time you have to remember, it's also the tech delay. Because Louis got delayed by an extra 15, 20 seconds, all of a sudden the count of knights is an even bigger advantage for Puppy Paw. It's cool how these small details can make the difference, though. I hope people are kind of like taking notes when they're watching players like this, because it's very intriguing to just think of how 10 seconds can be worth it in that situation, especially when your opponent overreacts. Like, I think Louis slightly overreacted there. When the king was like cycling around, he could have pulled villagers out to continue building up. He didn't need to idle the second TC at all. But this is the thing, like, it's very easy to panic when you've got this very chunky knight coming into your base and you have 0 military. And yes, Photo, that's very historically accurate. England having 2 kings, that's how the War of the Roses began, right? So, you know, boom. We love arguing over our claims. Weird little charge coming out from Puppy Paw. I think he needs to wait for the king to engage here. But the logic is he wants to keep Louis in this corner so he can gather the relics elsewhere. So it makes a lot of sense when you think about it that way, right? Like, as it stands, Louis is guarding the back flank relics, but the central ones aren't being contested. So it means Puppy Paw is very easily going to turn this into a free relic game, and then we'll look to fight Louis over the 4th and 5th. And we can already see that Louis has prepped himself to immediately start going after those relics as well. I think this is going to be a 4-1 relic split, actually. Puppy Paw is already moving for the northern side relic, and let's be totally real, with the numbers as they are, Louis can't go elsewhere, right? Right now, he's at risk of being outnumbered. The only way he can win a fight is courtesy of his king, and if he has numbers in his favor. Unfortunately, he's not going to have either very soon, considering the king is now on his way back. It's quite an elegancy about the balance of these dances, right? Like, this is why I thought this would be a good matchup to watch, is typically English play right now. Mirrors aren't super sucky because they turn into knight spams, which are quite cool to see because of how fast they interact with each other, right? It's similar to when you watch kind of a French versus French matchup. It can have some interesting nuances. If this was going to be the old school build with Council Hall and Longbow Mass, I would never have clicked on it. So 2 more relics on the way home. Safe one in the corner yet to be nabbed, and Puppy Paw does know about that. He just hasn't moved for it yet. This is looking pretty good. If we consider that each relic is worth 80 gold, and that's about roughly 2 villages, that's going to be 4 to 1, which means you can add in an extra 6 villages. That's the eco difference. So really good position for Puppy Paw to be in. And of course, you know, as the game goes on, that gold trickle is going to become more and more invaluable as the veins are removed from the map, right? As gold becomes more limited. That's the thing that I always like to highlight, relics versus villages, because I noticed that's come up in chat. The value of relics is they actually have a very good surge return in terms of what you invest and what you get back. But the other more interesting detail is the fact that villages can eventually be capped, right? If I'm 10 villages behind, there's a way I recover that at a point in the game. Eventually, you're going to reach your threshold of like 140. You won't want more. And then I catch up. If I have 3 more relics than you, the only catch up you have is delete my monastery. This game's getting tough now, folks. Louis is going to have to go for Imperial. The problem is, with this many knights, it might cost him quite a bit. In fact, the only thing that's really missing for Puppy Paw is the blacksmiths. I think rushing that would have been a smart read to try and get the dive going. Because diving this white town might prove expensive. And in fact, Puppy Paw is going all in on this. It means Louis is going to have to go for Berkshire just to stay alive. Yeah, there's no negotiating. I've talked about this before, that Wingard is better. I always think Wingard is better. But when you're forced to build Berkshire, you have to do it. And what feels really bad for Louis is being forced to build Berkshire here is a death sentence if you can't end the game quickly. Because if you don't end the game quickly, then your opponent's going to get Wingard. Wingard gives so many options. Footmen are incredible. Wingard Raiders allow you to catch up, right? Like, that's the other thing that Louis is missing when he has to go Berkshire here, is he won't have that surge point of getting mass knights. He'll just be stuck scaling with, what, 4 stables worth from the 2 keeps. Looks like Louis is on the march out. He's going to wish he wasn't, though. my god. So Louis just got confirmation that Puppy Paw isn't going Imperial. Although that's not entirely true, is it? Because now on a delay, he's prepping for it. Raid comes in on the villagers. Louis is going to chip down a few. But he might get trapped on the exit here. Just about slivers his way out. Berkshire now on the way at home. And Puppy Paw, interestingly enough, adding in more knights. So he must know there's a tech coming, right? When you see this many knights show up the king, you're probably thinking, okay, like I haven't been raided elsewhere, so he's not split his troops up. He's going towards Imperial Age. So you immediately see Puppy Paw queues up the knights, then cancels them, and he's going to now look to mirror in the footsteps of Louis. Yeah, that's a smart read. Like, you could see for a moment he thought about doubling down, but when he saw no additional waves, it just makes sense what this game's turning into. And it makes the choice really simple for Puppy Paw. This should be a wing guard. Love the fact that he split the knights as well. Half to defend, half to raid. And look at the place he strikes. Louis on his gold vein, his secondary gold. Nowhere near the Berkshire. Now, this is the negative sometimes of close gold spawns, is you think it's beneficial because you can defend one location. But in a game like this, when you have to defend the ford, you're going to have to choose. Do you want to lose the head or lose the arms? So he chose to lose the arms, but it means that Louis now might lose the arms race. He can only scale Spearman. He hasn't got much gold to get what he needs now that it's Imperial Age. Yeah, this is something I take issue with, the idea of always rushing Imperial Age. If you don't have good gold secured, then you don't actually have a real Imperial Age. Unless you want to go mass hand cannoneers, but even that requires gold, right? So, like, there's not many civs that can justify just a raw Imperial. The reason you see HRE do it all the time is because what they want out of it is villages, right? Like, that's what they need. But when you're a lot of other civs, it's about elite upgrades. Elite upgrades cost 700 gold each. So you want elite spearmen, then you want to get your hands on elite army tactics. You want all these things. All of a sudden, I've just said those two techs, that's 1,400 gold on its own. Then you add in enclosures. All of a sudden, that's another 350 gold. You start to see these numbers just escalating in your head, right? It gets out of control insanely fast. And that's why I prefer the build now for Puppy Paw, because you just see on a delay, Windguard's coming in, it's the better one. But also, because he's accrued all these relics, and he's still gathering gold as he techs up, he's going to be able to get the Knights into elite status, he's going to be able to get Biology immediately if he wants to. He can afford many things which Louis simply cannot. In fact, Louis, if he wants to stay in this game, needs to secure the western flank. This 8k gold is his salvation. He's only got, what, 3k over here? Unless you just want to be spears, you're not going to have scalability. And the idea of just going spears here feels like a death sentence. Because if I see you're doing this, I can easily switch into either men-at-arms or archers as blue. That's not entirely true. With Wingard Palace, you do need to spend money on upgrades, because if you're going raiders, yes. But if you're going footmen rangers, you are correct. You don't need to spend money on that. And it's just going to be a footman game. This is going to get rough. Louis, the problem is this got scouted, right? Because it attacked some of the raiding knights. So Puppy Paw knows he's up against Berkshire. He has full confirmation. So footman's kind of a no-brainer. And now you're seeing Louis going for the melee mosh pits. Men at arms and spears. Last of the Knights should be getting chopped down here. Almost gets the pincher. But this is the end of the road for Green's mobility now. They're playing static comp. We've seen Louis do this to great success against some players, actually. I think most notably, recently we watched him do it to Beastie, where he non-stop men-at-arms against the Chinese. And it worked, actually, surprisingly enough. The difference here is one of quality and a similar concept. But what makes it worse still is you're going to have to dive into static defenses, which give an aura. So these footmen were already going to win. Now they're going to win even harder. An interesting place to burn through. Elite statuses are coming in soon. Knights could actually cut reinforcements. I'd prefer that here. Just take the small group of reinforcements, let the footmen deal with this. In fact, he's got elite stats coming through soon. Seeing if there's a reaction, and there isn't. Louis doesn't get the brace out. Oh, wow, and that's going to be a bad fight. Knight upgrade coming in just a few seconds. The spearmen, more delayed. And the footmen get left behind. So good clear up now for the footmen. Means you just have to run away from them. But wave after wave is queuing, guys. We're already up to 12 footmen. Soon we are going to be up to 30. Remember, these guys only take, what was it, 45 seconds? No military academy, though, right? I think he's been prepping the undermesh instead. he didn't rush into Military Academy, which I think is actually a more valuable tech in these type of games. Am I blind? There it is. Oh, sorry, he did get it. Okay, yeah. So wait, we should be lower than that, right? Yeah, we're 34. Okay. You gotta be careful of that. The UI sometimes just lies to you. So you have to check down here. Yeah, mark my words. This build is going to get more and more popular. Military Academy with Footman gets kind of insane. With Raiders, even more so. I love the fact that he's going back for Raiders. He got the elite status on the Knights. He produces these guys an insane 19 seconds. Every 19 seconds, he's getting 3 Knights and 3 Horsemen. He's not getting an insane discount, but he's actually still saving money because the Raiders cost 850 resources. If you just got the Knights on their own, that would be 720 resources. So you're actually getting, like, what, 2 Horsemen for free? While getting them at an insane pace. Outside of this, we still don't have blacksmiths yet from Louis, do we? No, a little bit surprised by that, actually. I mean, you're playing men-at-arms, you haven't fully upgraded them, there's no armor-clad yet. Spearmen do benefit a lot at this stage from base damage increases, especially when you then add in elite army tactics as well. Remember, guys, Military Academy is the one that increases your production speed by 33%. You are correct. I think we're prepping walls now. You can already see Puppy Paws gathering a lot of stone. This is pretty natural when Rocky River reaches late game. You just stonewall between these little intersections, and it gives you full control of the game. Louis with an insanely wide flank here. Hasn't been seen yet. Interesting enough, there are footmen marching around this area, though. So you might get some damage done. You can see knights and footmen on the other side. What worries me is Louis is now running out of gold. He's at least walled on the east side, but that means the 8k gold still isn't secured. And keep drop now coming in. So actually, it looks like instead, Puppy Paw isn't going to get the walls up. He's going to look to secure the fat gold. Those raiders have now arrived on the backside, so burn through on the power save wall is going to require a reaction. Looks like troops are on the way, but not quickly. However, the beauty of the Wingard Raiders is how quickly you get an answer here. Insane how fast you can just replicate an army at home to defend yourself with. In fact, like, what did this count go down to? Can anyone remember this? I feel like it went down to 18 or something. The rate at which these cavalry numbers have been going up is insane. What I find most interesting about this build is it essentially turns a fairly slow civ into a fast one, and also a pacing civ. This is Zerg. This is premium Zerg. It's kind of like the impact that you get out of the fast castle Japanese build, but focused around Imperial instead. And this is an absolute massacre. I mean, there's no elite army tactics, right? Sure, there's no biology on the other side. It just simply doesn't matter. However, soon, guys, there will be elite army tactics, and with this many footmen, that has to be a GG. If Louis doesn't get a counter, a clear, clean counter to this, he's simply going to die to it. You know, it's interesting because a long time ago when we used to see English mirrors, it was widely accepted that Wingard Palace was the win condition. If you forced your opponent to go for Berkshire, you knew you had late game. I don't think it's any different. Like, it's the exact same matchup in that way. And if you look at this game, Louis doesn't really have many upsides for him. He's ahead on economy, which is great, sure, but the relic count is always going to remain against him. The Wingard factor is going to remain against him. These are things that he cannot change. And as we mentioned earlier, this villager count is only temporary. Why doesn't he build Lombos against the Spearman build? Because he wants to keep pace. Like, if he keeps building like this, the Footman will eventually win, but then the Knights can raid and kill Eco. It's just a lot quicker. Like, Longbows are not going to want to die for Berkshire, right? They'll die to it. They'll take too long. But these guys will just overwhelm. And the problem is Louis is getting to a point where he has to fight. Oh, my dear God. You know what? We have to get a British name going for these guys. Reginald Ribauldequin is on the way. Imagine if he just does the same, though, out of the keep in the center. You know what's crazy? Is, like, actually, Ribauldequins is the correct call for both of these players. We're in an English game where not a single ranged unit has been built other than a Ribauldequin the entire game. Oh my God. This is genuinely the perfect Ribauldequin game. Nice reaction straight away. Puppy Paw says, hold up. I see that. I ain't fighting with it. Please, please queue up a Ribauldequin as well. I need this. Shot comes out. Not super effective, though. And by the way, what kind of sucks is that this is range damage against chunkier footmen. And remember, footmen have higher ranged armor than melee armor. So you're actually doing less damage to these guys than if it was just mass men-at-arms. Ribauldequin will stand his ground, though. Wait, what did he even shoot there? Did he even shoot? I can't believe it looks so bad. I think he killed like 2 footmen and then died. But don't worry, folks. Have no fear. Reginald II is on the way. I don't know where he is. Oh my god. Ribauldequins are so bad. I feel like Ribauldequins only ever works against mass spearmen. I don't know if it's bugged as well. Like, watch. Sometimes watching it, it feels like it's bugged. You know, as a person who played Cossacks growing up, I wish it was like the multi-cannon, but it really isn't. Anyone who's played Cossacks knows exactly what I'm talking about. Sadly, Ribauldequins are, quite frankly, underwhelming. But not so underwhelming that Puppy Paw wouldn't consider building them as well. GG gets called. It turns out, even in a perfect melee game, Ribauldequins still will not be your savior.